Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of HSP TV. I am your host, Barbara, and today I am joined by the wonderful Dr. Beverly Lawrence. And we are going to talk today about how, if you want to change the world around you, you should start by changing yourself. And I've been looking forward to this topic because it's really relevant, especially in today's world, and also what I see among my clients. So thank you so much for agreeing to have this wonderful talk with me today, Beverly.
Oh, glad to be here.
And so we talked already a little bit about this topic when we started, and you shared a little bit about your business. So why is it so logical to you, or so clear that if you are not liking what you're seeing in your outside world, and your outside world doesn't reflect your true desires, it could be a romantic relationship or business-wise or money-wise or whatever, that you should start with yourself in order to change that?
Well, I had a very abusive childhood. I won't go into the details, but it was, narcissistic parents. My mother was codependent, and I became my mother. I became codependent, but I was always, as an empath and as someone who was prophetic, I see things in advance. I know things. I know what's going on. So as a small child, I started arguing with my parents. Especially my dad, is like, I don't agree. He was very prejudiced. I said, I don't agree. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what religion you are. I like you anyway. And he didn't. And he, was like this, and I didn't agree. So I was punished a lot. And as I got older, I did a lot of volunteer work at a library. So I did a lot of reading because I was bored in high school. So I was just always studying on my own. And my dad would say things and I would disagree. And you have to listen to what I say. And, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then, of course, I got married probably too young, and I married my dad and became my mother. And it just kept getting worse. An example is, for my whole life, my dad would complain that when I was 6 months old, I gave my mother a breast infection when she was nursing me. And I was easily triggered. And so I was in this constant state of anger. I was always pissed off. And then I finally got a divorce, almost died. I've had 5 near-death experiences, and I needed to work on myself. And my mom, my sister was married, and her husband told her he was going to leave her. And she called my mom and said, I don't know what to do. My husband's leaving me. And my mother told her, I have nothing for you. I have no time for you. I can't help you. And so my sister tried to commit suicide. Now, luckily, her husband decided to come back home. He must have felt something was wrong. She was in a coma. They took her to the hospital. The doctor said, you have to sit next to her and talk to her. And somehow she came back. So she called me, and I said, oh, don't worry about mom. If you need me, call me. I'll be there in a flash, And then I called my mom, and she wouldn't talk about it. And she started yelling at me, and I hung up on her. So she called back, and I wanted to talk about what happened with Barbara, and she wouldn't talk about Barbara, by the way. She wouldn't talk about it. And she started screaming and yelling again. So I hung up. So my father wrote a 2-page typed letter and CC'd the whole family about what a terrible, horrible person I am. And I didn't respond. I just, gave him the fickle finger of faith and faith. And he did it again. He wrote another 2-page letter. And I went, okay, I can't deal with this anymore. I can't fix them. I disconnected all contact with them. My daughter and I did a ritual to release all of our anger, and then we burned the pieces up. We did the special ritual to let all of it go, because I didn't want to spend my life in anger. And so I started dealing with it, and I did all kinds of different healing, therapy, hypnosis, shamanic healing, energy healing, you name it. I was doing it because I was a mess, really. And I took this handwriting analysis program. It was a certification program. And at the end, the teacher said, "What are you going to do next?" And I says, "Well, I'm going to study NLP." And people looked at me and said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, because I want to know how to communicate, how my words impact, because I need to make sure the way I say things and what I say isn't impacting others in a way that I don't intend." And it's talked about my mother and father and how I just couldn't communicate with them and stuff like that. And people looked at me and said, "Beverly, that's what," and I won't name the teacher, but this teacher was trying to poke my buttons through the whole, and this was a several month class. So we'd been together for a long time. We knew each other. We'd analyzed each other's handwriting. They said, "You're really good at diffusing things." And I went home and meditated and realized that this teacher was my mother and my father all wrapped up in one, and that I had learned what I needed to learn. And I do shamanic work, and I got a message from my power animals: "You have to call your mother now or we won't work with you anymore." Well, that's like taking it to a shaman, just, "Oh my God, my animals. Oh, okay, I'll call my mom." So I called my mom, and she wasn't home. And there's more of the story, I'll leave it out, but she called back and I wasn't home, but I knew, okay, the communication is open. So I called her back and we were able to talk. And then she started going down that path. And I just said, "Well, I have to go now." So I just wouldn't let her go down that path. She died 2 months later. If I hadn't talked to her when I did, we never could have, I was able to be there at the end with her, but that would have been horrible if she died and we had that negative energy. And then I talked to my father after that, and we were able to resolve those differences. And then I was with him one time, and he did that, "Well, when you were 6 months old," that story about breastfeeding. And I just laughed. I said, "Dad, I was a baby. Don't be stupid." So it changed, and then it changed the dynamic with my brother and sister. It changed everybody in the family's dynamic, my daughter's relationship with my family. Everybody's relationship improved, and all I did was work on me. And then as my ex-husband had told my daughter I was stupid and she could ignore me, and so I put up with that for a very, very long time. So I was letting her treat me poorly because I was so used to everybody treating me poorly. And one day I thought, you know what? I'm going to stop this. And she's always telling me how to feel and what to say. And you can't say that. And it's like, you don't get to tell another person how to feel or what to say. And so I told her, I was kind of harsh to get her attention. And I said, "I really don't care if I ever see you again or not." And she just went into a tirade and rage. And I said, she was only visiting for a couple of days. And I knew that would, really anger her. And then I said, "Are you telling me that for the next 2 days, you can't just behave yourself?" So she sat down, and now I had her attention. Now she was listening. So I said, "You are always telling me you can't feel that way. You don't get to tell me how to feel. I feel how I feel. That's who I am. That's what I feel." And I says, "You also were always telling me you can't say that." "Well, I'm your mother and I'm much older than you, and I will say what I want to say, and you don't get to tell me I can't say that." And she says, "Well, sometimes I want you to say something different." I says, "Well, if you need something from me, you have to tell me what you need. I don't know what you need. If you needed something different, you just need to tell me." And since then, we had a completely different relationship. So it's by not just only changing me, but changing my reactions,
Mhm.
turning things into humor, or just being really direct. "Hey, this is not acceptable. I don't accept it." or just excusing yourself and walking away and not engaging. And those are the three major techniques that I use to not go down that rabbit hole. Because once you're down the rabbit hole, there's no way out.
No, and that's exactly what it is, right? Because we have acquired autopilot programs, and we acquired them because at one moment in our lives they were useful. They helped us survive, or maybe make it through something, or they were useful at one point. But in the end, when someone says something that triggers a hurt within you, and you automatically respond to it, then usually it's hurt people hurt people. So when you are hurt by something, you hurt back. You're either angry or aggressive, but whatever type of response that you're giving out of hurt is not going to solve the situation, because then you hurt the other person and they feel hurt and they feel the need to hurt you back, and then it's like a ping pong match that never ends because you keep hurting each other over and over again. And if you want out of that, then you need to stop and think, okay, this is the response I've always given, this is the result I've always gotten, am I happy with this? No. Okay, so how do we stop this? Well, by first off not responding the way I always respond. Okay, so how do I then respond? Well, yeah, that's the million dollar question. And what a lot of people don't realize is how much more power they have over their responses and their thoughts than they think. So it becomes the first step, I think, is becoming aware that you are in such a pattern, and that auto things get triggered, and that you automatically go off into some sort of trigger response. A good example is also customer service, right? Who doesn't have a horrible customer service experience where they treat you like an idiot, or where they promise you everything and never ever do anything, and you are frustrated up until here, which is very, very understandable, believe me. And we've all had experiences like this. But if you go off to such a person and you're going to be aggressive and negative and maybe even call them names, then do you think it will be likely that they are willing to help you? Probably not. And you need the help of such a person, because they are your way into such a company. And I started actively practicing kindness and being very understanding, being very kind, and being very calm, and then also infusing it with humor and laughing a bit about your own misery and your own things. And then they're like, oh, we are so impressed that you are so calm underneath all of this horrible things that you're experiencing, and we feel really bad about all of this, and we are going to try our best to help you sort this out. And that's the actual response that you want from a customer service person. But it isn't until you change how you treat them, how you respond to them, no matter how shitty the thing is that you're suffering from, then you get a different type of response back, right?
That happened to me recently. My car is in a trust. And when I moved to Cottonwood in 2020, I got a new driver's license. And when you get a new driver's license, it's supposed to change your car registration. Well, it didn't, because it's in a trust. And I didn't know that. But when I had my car washed, they told me that it still said 20 on the license plate. So it hadn't been renewed in 2 years. Went into the DMV or DVM or whatever it's called, Arizona. And I said, she said, how are you doing? I says, well, I'm fine, but I think I'm in trouble. Told her, I think I haven't paid my registration in 2 years. And she laughed because I was laughing.
Yes.
And she took care of it. And she was really friendly and nice. And she didn't get mad at me, because you can be arrested for driving without a registered car. I could have lost my acupuncture license. I mean, it could have gotten serious. And yeah, but I find that you're right. If you own your mistake and you laugh, it totally changes the dynamic of the person you're working with. And she was really friendly and happy the whole time, even though I had monumentally screwed up.
And in this case, at least you could blame yourself. But the time when I really needed them, they were constantly screwing up. And I was having severe internet problems already for 1.5 years. And having an online business, this is a serious issue for me, right? Because everything revolves around internet. And I lost internet connection at least 5 times every hour, which is unworkable when you coach through the internet or when you're doing interviews like we are having right now. So it became a serious problem, and they kept on promising things and then sending people over to check things out. And most of them didn't even know what they were talking about. And also the people on the phone were not really knowledgeable about how to help you. And they kept going with me through procedures that were about Wi-Fi problems while the entire internet was gone. So of course I had no Wi-Fi. So things like that. And then it's really difficult to keep your calm because it's so damn frustrating, and it's such a big issue that you're having.
I had that problem earlier this year, but I have this. This is a Verizon hub. I don't know if they have that in Europe.
I don't know.
My internet was down. It was gone for a couple of weeks. I called Verizon. I said, I need help because you only have so many. I have unlimited data, but after so much, they throttle you down.
Yes.
And I said, help, my internet is down. I've got to have internet. And so I was able to buy some extra minutes, and I used the hub when the internet was unstable. Because when I was in Chandler, instead of having a business internet where I worked, where I had my office, I just used the hub because when I'm doing acupuncture, I don't need to be online.
No, exactly. When I'm doing acupuncture, I'm also not online. So we are both acupuncturists, which is awesome, among other things that we are doing. But you know, sometimes then it's the other person that you need cooperation from, and that are constantly dropping the ball. And it's so tempting and so logical to become very angry and aggressive, even, and frustrated, and just completely done with it all. But if you voice that, if you let it out in that way, you're not going to get any form of cooperation. So you need to be in a different mind space and in a different way of responding and reacting in order to get the other party to at least respond and react in a different way. And so that's the thing that we've both concluded in how we work and what we've seen in our personal experiences. Because when you were sharing your story, we have a lot of similarities in our story. So it's not surprising that we are also in the same type of field. But so now people know that if you are not happy with what you're seeing in your surroundings, you need to start working on yourself. You need to start working on your energy and your responses, for instance, and the way you respond or the way you react to things. But that's a lot easier said than done. Where do people start?
Well, the first thing you have to start with is I suggest people journal. Write down what you're feeling and don't read it right away. Once the issue has been resolved, then go back, write down how you feel now, then go back and read what you were writing before. And sometimes I would go back and I'd go, God, I was thinking that. And you're getting feedback from you. And it depends on what the problem is. For some people, they're exhausted, they're stressed out, they're wiped out. You need stress management. Some people are in pain. You need to go get a healing. Some people, it's emotional pain. So maybe you need some kind of therapy. Some people, I do shamanic healing because sometimes people have PTSD or some kind of serious trauma. You need a soul retrieval. You need to reintegrate. Now you can do that energetically if you know how, or you can do it shamanic. There's a number of ways to do the same thing. So it just depends on what's wrong. I would say get a coach and ask, what do you suggest is the most significant thing I need to work on first? But if you don't have the money, start with journaling and work on yourself by looking at what are you writing down. And you have to write what you feel before and after something happens and go, I like to put things, this is how you find humor. think of some stupid mistake you made 10, 20 years ago. Today you can laugh about it.
Yeah.
In the moment, it's not funny. But if in the moment you go, how will I feel in 10 years? All of a sudden you find the humor.
Mhm.
So that's one way I get the humor. And if I don't know what to do, I'll either walk away or I'll laugh. And when you start laughing, all of a sudden something funny comes out of your mouth because you're in that energy state. So you have to change your energy,
Mhm.
whatever that takes. Another trick that I've learned is in NLP, we have a thing called anchoring. And so whenever I have a pleasant, happy moment, I will anchor it. So this is my bank account. So when I need a happy moment, I pull it out of my bank. The other thing I can do is if I'm really getting tense, I will jab myself with a nail. I will, you just go with your fingernails or
Pain
something,
response.
or because that it takes you out of whatever you're stuck, because you're stuck in something. You need
Yes.
anything to pull you out of it. If it's pain, if it's humor, if it's just thinking of something different, whatever you can use to pull yourself out of that state.
Mhm.
Because I have found that when I respond from that state, I spend a lot of time going around saying, I'm really sorry for my behavior, in order to try and fix damages, relationships that I've damaged, because you will damage relationships from coming from that space.
Yes.
And it's easier to not damage the relationship and move forward than it is to try and fix it, because people never forget when
No,
you hurt
once
feelings.
it's damaged, and maybe they forgive, but they never forget. And depending on what you did to damage it, sometimes it will never be okay again. So you're absolutely right. And I love the things that you shared. A lot of them I also do. Another technique that I also use is just wiggling my toes. Then
Mhm.
I go with my attention to my feet. That helps me to ground. When I am grounded, I have more control over my energy. I have more control over my emotions. I have more control over my responses and my thoughts. And just by wiggling my toes in my shoes like this, nobody can see it. Well, in the summer, people can see, but it's still under the table, right? Most people don't look at your feet.
Yeah.
And these are indeed techniques. So it's of course, you can do it by yourself. And these tips that we are already sharing are very useful when you start you journaling, and I call it an emotional journal.
Oh, I don't hear you.
What you're feeling every day, then you can start seeing and looking into yourself. You can start seeing how you're doing. You can start get a better handle on your triggers. And then when you are aware of your triggers, because it starts with awareness, then you can come up with a strategy. Okay, if I feel this trigger and this is my usual response to it, how else could I respond to it? What else could I do? And so, of course, everybody can do everything by themselves. But like Beverly is also sharing, if you want to have more success in a shorter time, then it is really helpful to start working with someone. And a coach like me, a coach like Beverly, there are more people out there. What I always advise is follow them for a while. That's part of why I'm doing these interviews, so that people can get to know me, can get to know my energy, can get to know who I am, besides loving talking to people like you and having amazing conversations that feed my soul. So it's also for me, but follow them for a while, feel their energy, and then, look if they have an option of getting to know them in a way that doesn't immediately cost money. Because for a lot of people, money is tight. A lot of people have had bad experiences, including myself, with people who promise the golden mountains, and then you invest, and then, they do nothing. So go and talk with people. I offer a free coffee chat with people if they're interested. I think you do something similar. So those are good places to start. And if you're a good coach, then the coach also has different levels in which you can work with the coach, depending on, of course, your income, the time that you have available, the speed with which you want results. Because I hope that everybody will understand that if you want big, quick results, then that's one-on-one work with the highest price. And if you have more time, then there should be offers that are in a lower price. But it's like going to the gym and you're either overweight or too scrawny and you want to get into the perfect physical shape where you're either really buff or just nicely lean and healthy and feeling good about your appearance and your body. Of course, you can go to the gym by yourself and you can start learning about all the machines, or you do a Zumba class or a Pilates class or whatever and work on yourself. Everybody can do that. But if you want better and quicker results, then you start working with a personal trainer. So that's in essence also what a good coach does for you. It's not about investing in pipe dreams that will never come to fruition. A good coach helps you get the best out of yourself, just like a personal trainer would do, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. If you're not, there's two things you have to do if you want to improve. One is you have to invest in yourself. Sometimes that requires money, or sometimes it just requires your time and attention. And whether you spend money or not, it always requires your time and attention. You need to spend time looking at yourself. That means looking within, not looking around, oh, so-and-so did it. No, no, no. How did I respond? What am I saying? What am I thinking? What's going on up here? That's why I like to start with meditation, because you're going to hear your own thoughts, and you can correct those thoughts. I was raised by a military dad. So the word, I hope I can swear, the word shit came out of my mouth every other word. And then I went to work in corporate America and I was offending people left and right. And then when I went into therapy, I realized how often I was swearing in my head, worse than that word. And I went, no, that's not how I want to talk. And I corrected myself here. I corrected my thinking, because what you think comes out of your mouth. And if it comes out of your mouth, it comes out of your attitude, it comes out of your behavior. Everything comes out of what's going on in your head. And when you fix it in your head, it really, if you want to start somewhere, write down what's in your head, do a meditation and write down what happened. And then look at it and go, is that really who you are? Is that who you want to be?
Exactly.
And just start there.
And the tricky part, I think, is also that a lot of people are not aware of how they can come across sometimes. A lot of our behavior is unaware behavior, and that's very difficult to spot for yourself. It's not impossible, but it's a lot harder. And that's also where somebody else can come in handy. They can be the mirror holding you up, or holding the mirror up to you so that you see yourself reflected back, especially when you're having trouble with meditation, for instance, or with quieting your mind, or with truly looking within yourself instead of sort of, but then, running away from it and convincing yourself that you're doing it while at the same time, that you're not really doing it, and trying to get by in that way. We've all had experiences or clients like that. So that's also very normal. So that's when you're serious about yourself and your life and the results in your life, then you need to take charge of yourself. You need to start taking charge of your inner world, so that you have control and knowledge, in-depth knowledge about your inner world, your inner workings, your responses, so that you can become aware when they are happening, and that you can choose to not let them happen or have them happen in a different way, but at least choose the way you want to respond to the things that are happening. Because if you are like I was and like Beverly was before, then you give far too much power to the outside world, and you have the outside world dictate how you are feeling. And that's a big reason why I've stopped watching the news years ago, because the news is often fabricated and it's always about things that are horrible, but that we cannot change anything about, but it is affecting how you're feeling. You're feeling sad or down or angry or whatever when you see or hear things like that. And so you need to start taking charge of what things from the outside world you're exposing yourself to. And then how much power are you going to give those things? Are you really going to have a shitty day because the girl at the supermarket was rude to you? and you cannot let it go. And you keep going over and over and over again in your head. And, oh, this is what I should have said. Oh, the nerve of her. And what type of responses we can have in our head that can go on and on and on and on. And then they can seriously mess up your day. Is that really what you want? And if you are like me, like you, then I'm hoping the answer is no.
So when you're an empath, other people's feelings, you feel them intensely within you. And the first thing you have to do is realize it's not you, and that there is this thing called resonance. So if you feel that and you transmute the energy into something positive, they feel the resonance coming back as positive rather than negative. So if they give you negative energy and you feel that energy and you respond with negativity, it's going to escalate.
Yes.
Whereas if they respond with negativity and you transmute that into positive and you send back the positive, they can't go anywhere with it. It transforms them, and they have a choice. So one of the things that I do is, let's say you go someplace and you go to a conference and all the chairs are butted right next to each other, you're practically bumping arms.
Yeah.
Well, you have no control sometimes over who's sitting next to you.
No.
So what I do is when I sit down, I start sending out pink healing energy out of my crown chakra, and I have it rain down in my energy field, and I spin it around. And you have 3 feet around you of your aura. So I maintain that I'm responsible for that 3 feet. And when I go somewhere, I clean that energy. And so people will sit down next to me and they'll either go, oh, I like this. And they resonate with that, or they go, I can't handle this, and they leave.
And either way is good, right? I love that you're sharing this because it's so true.
I'm not controlling them. It's their choice. That happened to me with a neighbor. I had a neighbor that was just awful, and I just kept sending love and healing energy, and they moved.
That is actually good advice, because I have a neighbor like that. And I'm going to actively try this and see what happens. We're on. This is a good
Send
stuff.
love, send healing energy, and either they will change or they will leave.
Yes, exactly. I did mini experiments with this when I went into the bakery, for instance. I intentionally made my energy field really small by contracting it around me. And what happened was that everybody that came in after me was helped before me. They kept overlooking me like I wasn't there. And then I decided to expand my energy and make it bigger and come from a place of love. And then she asked the guy that came in after me, how can I help you? And he looked at me and he said, weren't you first? I was, yes, thank you. So little experiments like that also help you feel the effect of your energy, because if you've been raised like me, I've always been raised, well, seeing is believing. And when you're acting normal, you're already crazy enough. So all of these woo-woo things, and we didn't really believe in it. So the concept of energy and your auric fields for a lot of people is really foreign. And a lot of people have issues with it, trusting in it, believing in it, feeling it, sensing the power. But these little experiments really help you, because if it's all about intention. So if you have the intention of shrinking your energy and really this type of movement, then that's what's happened. And then you can see the effect on your outside world.
Invisible, yeah.
And then you have the intention of opening up and expanding, and then seeing how your direct environment responds. And at the bakery is a perfect place, waiting in line at the supermarket, all of these places, a crowded restaurant or a library or any place where there are a lot of people. These are very interesting experiments to do, so that you can start to get to know your energy and start to feel that it's there, instead of thinking because that's still, because you cannot see it. It's not tangible. You cannot take it. You cannot grab it.
You can see it. One of the things I do when I have my live classes, you can't do it online, but I get dowsing rods. and I stand way back from people and I say, I walk, I say, stand there. I do one person at a time, one student at a time, and I walk towards them until the rods go out. And I say, okay, that's where your energy is. Why is your energy way out here? So it shouldn't be compact, so you're really tight, but it shouldn't be spread out all over the place either.
Oh.
You should know where your energy is. And about 3 feet is, at least in the United States, other cultures have different boundary limits. In the United States, it's 3 feet. So I say, pull your energy in. So as they pull their energy in, the dowsing rods go like this. And I'll walk until we're about 3 feet away, and then they go like that. And I'll say, okay, now I'm going to walk back, and the dowsing rods go like that. And I'll say, okay, now send your aura all the way out over to here. So you actually see the rods moving as you move your energy field. So people, but it takes 2 people to do that. If you don't have dowsing rods, just wire hangers, put them in a straw, handmade dowsing rods.
Yeah.
And you'll see that. And then I use that, like I have tonkas, of Buddhas, and you can see the energy coming off the Buddha, and it's about 40, 50 feet away that you can feel the energy off of those tonkas. So you can do that with religious figures, religious tonkas, artwork, TVs. You can see the energy coming off of your TV and how far it goes across the room and your computer. And that's not necessarily a positive energy. It's the dowsing rods are just measuring the energy and how far out it comes. So that's how I show people how much power they have with their energy field, so that it's believable, because you can see the rods moving. And then I give them the rods. Here, you do it for yourself, so that they know I cheat.
No, I agree with you. What I was referring to is more that you cannot see it with your own eyes, like I can see you, or like people can see us. It's not that way in general.
Some of us can.
Yes, that's true. There are people who do see auric fields or energy fields, but for most of us, that's usually not the case. So if you are someone like that, then that's also normal. I've also had people that tell me, all of a sudden I saw all of these colors around people and I just didn't know how to handle that or what to do with it. Or they saw sound waves when people were talking. So that is indeed possible, but I'm more talking about, I think, the especially the not really open, not really stepping into it, sort of unbeliever type of person. Those usually don't see anything like that, but have difficulty in grasping the concept. But it starts with awareness, starting to become aware of yourself, of your thoughts, of your feelings, and the amount of influence that you are allowing the outside world to have over you. Because make no mistake, even though you think that's not the case, you are allowing the outside world, and not in the sense like, okay, I have now decided the outside world is going to influence me, not in that sense of allowing, but you are allowing them to have an influence over you, because at every given moment you can either close your auric field or push it away. Those are also exercises that I do, for instance, with the TV, when you're looking at a movie or a series that's heartbreaking and you feel all of these emotions coming because of something happening on the TV. I consciously then think, no, this is not mine. So stay there or go back. And then I feel relief in my own emotional response to it. So those are also things that you can play with, but it starts with acknowledging that you are letting the outside world influence you, even though you don't do that consciously, you don't do that deliberately, and you're not doing it willingly, but you are doing it. And then you need to learn how it exactly works specifically for you. And then you can start taking control over your inside world, so that the outside world cannot hurt it or touch it or influence it anymore, because you are in control of how you want to respond to something that happens or something that somebody says. And a lot of people come up to me and say, well, of course I want this, but how, right? It's never happened for me, and nobody can actually teach me how. And I wish it was a magic wand that you could wave, or I wish it was as simple as saying supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and bam, you've done it. That's not how it works. It works with inner work. It works on working on yourself, getting to know yourself really well. And that's a process.
And
Am I right?
practice. Yeah, and I would say start with friends. Go to your friends and say, I want to change. And if you see me do it, give them permission to give you feedback. So I see myself doing this sometimes and I don't want to do it. So if you see me do it, kind of wink at me or something so
Yeah.
that I know I'm doing that, because you need to practice. It's like if you want to get strong, you have to exercise a muscle. Well, when
Yes.
you're learning new behaviors, you have to exercise the muscle. And
Yes.
your friends haven't necessarily known you your whole life, so they don't know the old buttons that you have that you're trying to hide, but they do see your current behavior.
Yes.
And
Yes.
now you can start exercising that muscle with them because it's a little bit safer. You can tell them ahead of time what's going on. Because when it comes to family, who, especially if you grew up with them and they've known you your whole life, they know your secret buttons. It's harder with them to make the changes.
Yes.
But it can be done as you work through, first with your friends and your journal, and and then you can say, okay, now I mean, it was 5 years before I decided I might be strong enough now to tackle my parents, and it
Mm.
was 10 years before I was able to deal with my daughter. So it's not an overnight process. It takes time, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of self-awareness, self-consciousness, and being very purposeful for everything that comes out of your mouth and your attitude. And you can't hide your energy. So you might say, I really like what you're doing. They could see through that energy. You don't like it. You can't pretend. So it has to be real. And so you have to find that in here.
Yes.
Um, and
Exactly.
let that come out. However, it doesn't matter what words if it's coming from your heart.
And you need to be kind to yourself because it will take a lot of trial and practice and error and falling down and getting back up. And if you berate yourself every time, then you're also not getting anywhere. So just accept that it's a learning process and that you will grow, and then analyze everything that's happening and thinking, oh, what went right and what could have been improved, and then try and just take that with you for next time.
Well, one of the things that helps me with that is, number one, I ask for forgiveness. I say a prayer, I ask for forgiveness, then I forgive myself. And then I am grateful for the lesson. Oh, I'm so grateful that I just got this lesson, that I am doing this. And I find that when you do those steps, instead of berating yourself with, oh God, I did that again. No. Okay. Thank you for that lesson. Please forgive me. I forgive myself, and I will do everything I can not to repeat the behavior.
Mhm.
When you come from that kind of a space, and maybe it involves another person, you can send love to that person, and you can send love to your relationship. So
Yes.
you can send healing energy and love to the relationship you have with them. And that is amazing what happens the next time you see them. Because
Yes.
we're all connected and they feel it and they know it.
Yes, you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. And I'm really, really loving our talk. And I can imagine that you, a viewer or a listener out there, might also actually enjoy our talk. And we would really love it if you could express that in the form of a like or a comment or a sharing of this video, because you never know who might actually just really need to hear this conversation that we are having here today. So you would be doing them the utmost service by sharing this on social media wherever you are located or wherever you are seeing this. So thank you if you're doing this. And if you have any insights or questions or anything that you would like to share, your story or whatever, please feel free to use the comments and to share it. I will promise to personally respond to each and every one of you. But I can also imagine that you might want to know, how can we reach Dr. Beverly Lawrence, because this has been amazing, and I feel really attracted to your energy, and I would like to know more.
Okay. There's lots of ways to get a hold of me. One of the easiest ways is to, if you want to talk to me, is get on my calendar. So one of my shamanic power name is Dancing Bear. So if you go to dancingbearcalendar.com, you can get on my calendar. If you go to dancingbeargift.com, you will get a free gift and be on my email list. And if you go to drbeverlylawrence.com, you'll find out all about me and all the different things and businesses and everything else that I do.
I love it. And if this went too fast for you, no worries. I am including all the links that she just mentioned in the show notes. So either go below or above or to the side, wherever the show notes are, and you will find her links along with mine. And we would both love to help you, talk with you, and see how that help could come to fruition, or what it could look like. So please don't feel any hesitation in reaching out to either one of us, because we would both really love to talk with you. And I also want to thank you, viewer, watcher, listener, for being here, for supporting this show, for supporting this talk. It's been amazing. It's been amazing, Dr. Beverly, for you to be here. So thank you again for your wisdom and your insight and the wonderful tips that you've shared. I think this was an amazingly wonderful talk that has the power to help and inspire a lot of people. So thank you for your presence.
You're welcome. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity.
You're most welcome. So to you, viewer, listener, also again, thank you for being here. And I hope that you will join me again next week for a new talk with a different guest about a different topic, but it's going to be interesting and it's going to be fun. So I hope to catch you next week. But for right now, I wish you an amazing rest of your day or evening, depending on where you are when you're catching this. And I hope to see you again next week.